Let's explore a landmark legal case that has sparked a profound discussion about the intersection of religious freedom and military discipline in India. The Delhi High Court's recent judgment in Samuel Kamalesan versus Union of India, delivered on May 30th, 2025, addresses a complex clash between an officer's personal faith and the Indian Army's expectations of unity and obedience. This case, involving Lieutenant Samuel Kamalesan's dismissal for refusing to fully participate in regimental religious rituals, offers critical insights into how our armed forces balance individual rights with institutional demands. Let's examine the details of this case, its arguments, and its broader implications for the Indian military and society. Lieutenant Samuel Kamalesan, commissioned into the Indian Army in March 2017, served in the 3rd Cavalry Regiment, a unit with a strong Sikh, Jat, and Rajput presence. The part of this case lies in his refusal to fully engage in the regiment's weekly religious parades and rituals, specifically declining to enter the innermost sanctum of the regimental temple and Gurudwara during ceremonies like Puja, Havan, or Aarti. As a Protestant Christian, Kamalesan cited his monotheistic beliefs, which prohibit idol worship and participation in non-Christian shrine rituals. He maintained that he showed respect by attending these events in the temple courtyard, removing his shoes and belt, and wearing a turban when required, viewing these actions as gestures of solidarity. He claimed his troops understood his stance and never objected, suggesting no impact on morale. However, the army saw his refusal as insubordination, arguing it undermined unit cohesion and discipline. Despite counseling and assurances that participation would not constitute apostasy, Kamalesan's persistence led to his discharge in March 2021 without pension or gratuity, prompting his challenge in the Delhi High Court. Kamalesan's defense rested on his faith, which he argued prohibited him from participating in rituals that conflicted with his beliefs. He viewed his partial participation, attending parades but staying outside the sanctum, as a respectful compromise that prevented him from desecrating and offending the religious sentiments of others while remaining an integral member of the regiment. He also highlighted the absence of a Sarvdharm style or Christian worship space in his regiment, which only had a mandir and gurudwara, pointing to a gap in the army's commitment to interfaith harmony. Kamalesan alleged punitive measures beyond his refusal, including denial of training courses, an international UN posting, adverse remarks in his annual confidential reports, and a promotion block despite clearing exams. A discipline and vigilance ban imposed in February 2019, which he learned about in January 2020, further suggested systemic retaliation. He filed a statutory complaint under Section 27 of the Army Act alleging ACR tampering and discriminatory treatment, and argued that his termination without a court-martial violated Army rules. His counsel cited the Supreme Court's Bijoy Emmanuel case and Article 25 to defend his right to abstain from practices contrary to his faith, alongside Army regulations mandating respect for religious customs. The Indian Army, in contrast, justified Kamalesan's dismissal by emphasizing the primacy of military discipline, unit cohesion, and morale, which it deemed essential for operational effectiveness. The Army argued that participation in regimental religious activities fosters camaraderie and battlefield motivation, and an officer's refusal to fully engage undermines these goals. Despite assurances that participation would not constitute apostasy, Kamalesan's refusal was seen as direct disobedience to a lawful command. The Army framed these rituals as military duties with secular motivational purposes, shifting the issue from religious freedom under Article 25 to military discipline under Article 33. It stressed that the armed forces require a higher standard of discipline than civilian contexts, with officers bearing a higher and heightened responsibility to lead by example. The Army's choice of administrative dismissal over a court-martial, later endorsed by the court, was strategic to avoid unnecessary controversies that could harm the military's secular fabric, reflecting a focus on institutional stability. The Delhi High Court's ruling on May 30, 2025, unequivocally upheld Kamalesan's dismissal, finding his refusal to be insubordination, as he placed his religion above a lawful command. The court acknowledged Article 25's protection of religious freedom, but emphasized that Article 33 allows restrictions in the military to ensure discipline. It distinguished Kamalesan's case from civilian precedents like Bijoy Emmanuel, stating that military standards differ due to the critical need for unit morale. The court framed the issue as one of following orders, not religious freedom, and stressed that regimental traditions serve secular motivational purposes, despite their religious overtones. It showed deference to military authority, stating it was not the court's role to dictate disciplinary standards. However, the ruling raises questions about whether mandating participation in religious rituals aligns with the Army's secular ethos or subtly enforces conformity, challenging the notion of true pluralism. This judgment sets a significant precedent, reinforcing that military discipline under Article 33 generally overrides individual religious objections, particularly for officers. It places a heavy burden on commanding officers to prioritize unit cohesion, potentially affecting those from minority faiths in regiments with strong religious traditions. The absence of a Sarvdharm style in Kamalesan's regiment highlights inconsistencies in implementing the Army's interfaith ideals, suggesting a need for more inclusive infrastructure. The severe consequences of dismissal without pension or gratuity could discourage others from raising similar concerns, potentially stifling religious accommodation requests and impacting diversity in leadership roles. The case also sparks a broader conversation about the Indian Army's secular identity. While the Army promotes Sarvdharm style and trains religious teachers for all faiths, the ruling suggests that regimental traditions, even if religiously rooted, are deemed essential for cohesion and may require conformity. This nuanced interpretation of secularism, where religious traditions serve military purposes, may conflict with individual beliefs, raising ethical questions in a pluralistic society. The court's validation of these rituals as secular motivational tools indicates a complex balance between unity and personal faith, one that may not fully accommodate minority perspectives. In conclusion, the Delhi High Court's judgment in Samuel Kamalesan versus Union of India marks a pivotal moment in Indian military jurisprudence, prioritizing discipline and unit cohesion over individual religious practices when they conflict with lawful commands. It underscores the unique legal framework of the armed forces, where constitutional rights are subject to military needs. The ruling highlights the need for uniform implementation of inclusive practices like Sarvdharm style and fuels ongoing debates about balancing religious freedom with military discipline. As this case may head to the Supreme Court, it will continue to shape policies on religious accommodation, recruitment, and diversity in the Indian Armed Forces, challenging us to reflect on how a secular military can honor both its diverse personnel and its operational imperatives.